One thing that stands out in your approach is the idea of one goal, one barrier, and one action.
Hmm.
Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And can you explain a little bit more about that framework and how it works and why is it so powerful for business owners?
It's powerful because, especially for solopreneurs, there are so many different things that are happening. There are so many different things that are vying for your time. The challenge with zone three in particular, it's because they're usually your quick dopamine hits. Fixing your profile on LinkedIn feels good because you can see the result, but it's not going to get you money at the end of the day. And you can easily spend, if you're a creative person, you could spend hours. I have done so many different iterations of what's my banner going to look like? What's my headline going to look like? Focusing on all those different things. And I'm not spending the time focusing on the leads that I've already generated, getting in contact with them, finding out what their needs are, and getting them into my pipeline so that I can really see how I can support them. That's the kind of things to be thinking about. So when I say one goal, that's the one thing that at the end of the day, it really helps to understand where you want to be at. Case in point, I had a client who was talking with me and we went through her time. First thing she told me, I said, "Well, what is it you want?" She goes, "I want to work less hours. Most of us do." And she's like, "I want to get my Friday afternoons back." And I said, "I'm on board with that." I said, "Let me ask you a question." I said, Right now, if I gave you a new client, what would your first reaction be?" She said, "Oh crap." I said, "That already tells me a lot because it tells me you don't have the structure you need to be able to bring someone else on, yet you want to work fewer hours and you want to have those Friday afternoons." And so what we found as we were going through was that she was in a lot of different networking groups. And I said, "How many groups are you in?" And she said, "I'm in about six different groups throughout the month." I said, "I understand that." She's in for, I think it was about 20 hours a week through different ones because she was moderating some of them. And I came back, she said, "Well, I really like my relationships." I said, "I understand that. But you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, which one is more important to you? Actually having those relationships, which again, as solopreneurs, working by ourselves, working at home, that can be very valuable for us to be going through. Or do you want that Friday afternoon back? You really do have to pick. And for her, what we did was I had her go through and look at how many of these relationships that you've built are actually driving leads? How many of them are actually bringing in? And she was finding several of them just weren't. They were fun, they were interesting, but they weren't really driving that revenue. And that over time becomes time that she could have brought on that new client, could have gotten that extra income, or for her to have that freedom and flexibility that she can take off that Friday afternoon whenever she wants to. So that's where one goal comes in. One barrier comes in because all too often when we have goals and we set goals, we don't think about what's going to come in our way. And the first time we hit our first thing that's in our way, we lose momentum. Same thing happened with me when I was obese. I had a health coach that was working with me and she's like, "Where do you want to get to?" I said, I want to get to 175 pounds. I thought it was crazy. I'd been obese for 18 years, or excuse me, over 20 years. I did not expect anyone to be able to help me with that, especially being able to eat the way I wanted to eat. But she worked with me. She helped me keep saying, like, "What's your one goal? How are we going to get there?" And when I ran into my first barrier in the sense of I'm a picky eater, we already knew that ahead of time so that she knew, okay, here's what I want you to be focusing on this week. Here's how we're going to get around that. She understood me mentally of I now know what's in my way. I can get right around it rather than hitting that wall and then stopping and going, how am I going to get around it? Or saying, or, the self doubt coming and going, see, you're not going to get that goal. That goal was too ambitious to start with. And then that leads into one action to get past that barrier.